Hang in
Dude,
there. It is.
that's Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Smylie Show. We are joined by seven-time PGA Tour champion and major champion, Webb Simpson. Webb, thank you, buddy. It's good to have you on. And the first question I want to ask you is, if I recall, you're very particular about your coffee, aren't you? When you travel on the road with like a whole set, it's like a big to-do. Can you give me the full recipe of how you make your coffee on the road and at home? Because it's very particular, if I recall.
It's very particular. People think I'm having a Moscow Mule in the morning when they see this. This is my Ember mug. Yeah, so I kind of have an addictive personality. So when I try something I like, I want to make it as good as I can possibly make it. And so my buddy owns a coffee shop right outside Raleigh. And I called him a few years ago and I said, hey, what's the best cup of coffee, like the method of the best cup of coffee that I can make? And so it's a pour over method. So I travel with my scale, my grinder, my kettle, my mug, obviously. And so instead of running to Starbucks or, somewhere off site, a good local coffee shop, I just make it right in my room. And if you see me in the airport, occasionally you'll see me making one in Terminal 2, right beside everyone else. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite things.
So what's the process look like? You talked about all the things that go into making it, but I want to hear like step by step. What's the formula?
So the water is really important. You can't just use any water. You can, once you've had great water for your coffee, you start tasting the difference in good water, bad water. So good water. And then I measure the beans. I measure about 38 grams of beans on my scale. I grind them, and you got to have a burr grinder, meaning like you can adjust the fineness or the coarseness of the bean. And then you dump it in a little cheap ceramic glass thing. And then you get your water to anything between 200 and 210. And then you slowly start pouring the hot water over the grounds. In the morning, a lot of my friends give me a hard time because they just use a Keurig or their coffee's already made. But it's pretty therapeutic. You're kind of asleep and it's the first thing you're doing. So you kind of have to think, okay, what am I doing? I got to do this well. But it's therapeutic for me. I love it.
So who would be other coffee, not coffee snobs, that's not the right word, but who would you put in that category along with you on the PGA Tour of guys that really care about how their coffee tastes?
So I'm not really an influencer on social media. I'm an influencer in the world of coffee or wine, let's say. So I've influenced Russell Henley big time. Russell and I had this gig going where I was making a little income on the side. He doesn't have a Whole Foods in Columbus, Georgia. So I'd go to Whole Foods, get him some good beans. I'd ship them from UPS. If it was $100 shipping, I'd charge him about $120. I'd make a little scratch on the side. But Russell, when we go to tournaments now, Russell will come to my room every morning and make his own coffee with my stuff.
Stop it.
So I haven't gotten him fully dialed in. I think he's too embarrassed to travel with it, like I do. But he's certainly comfortable with using my stuff in my room. But there's a lot of guys on tour who love great coffee. Mm-hmm. Very few, if any, besides me, who will bring their own equipment on the road.
Oh, that's incredible. It really is, because I can't remember who I was talking to about that. And I just remember saying, Webb, like he travels with the whole kit. It's a whole big to do. And it's like, wow, I love that. I wasn't big into coffee when I was early on the PGA Tour, but my wife kind of got me into it to where, I was kind of scared to drink that cup of coffee before a morning round because I was worried I was going to have the shakes. But now I can't do without a cup of coffee in the morning.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of people wonder, how do you, do you check it? How do you get it determined? It's in my carry-on. So I go through security. A lot of times they pull out the grinder or the kettle. The kettle is like
that's part of it. It's part of it. You just know you're going to potentially get stopped. You got to do the extra 20 minutes of security. It's fine.
Exactly. It's worth it to me.
At least your coffee tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes great. Well, this all started during COVID. So COVID happened. I used to go to Starbucks. That was my spot. And all the Starbucks around Charlotte are closed. And so I get on the road for Colonial, the first tournament. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do if the Starbucks in Fort Worth are closed? A little more conservative in Fort Worth than Charlotte. So I figured maybe they're open, but I didn't want to risk it. And so I traveled with it. And literally the first morning, I'm in my t-shirt, like I just rolled out of bed and it's right there. I'm like, what have I been doing my whole career? So that was where it started technically.
Does Starbucks just taste terrible to you now?
Yeah, everyone always told me it's not that good. It's kind of burnt. And I'm like, no, it's good. But now I know what they mean.
You taste the difference.
Yeah.
Well, I don't disagree too. When you have good coffee and then you go have Starbucks, it's like,
It's a little different.
Yeah. Well, you're a podcaster now, Webb. I mean, how about it? How about us?
I mean, it's crazy. I never imagined I would be in the podcast world. But I get to do it with two of my great buddies, Ben Crane and William Kane. And it's something we've talked about for a long time. And you would laugh really hard, Smylie, because we are so technologically challenged. And so we mess up every other episode.
That is not shocking. That is not shocking.
But we got a great guy, JD Cobb, now running it. And it's been really fun.
What's been the joy for you in starting Bible Caddy and just being in the podcast world? Is it something that you envisioned that you would enjoy, or is it something that now that all you're thinking about is like, hey, how can we put out more great stuff for people to listen to?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was something that I didn't really know how the experience would feel having to do something every week, a commitment outside of what I was already committed to. But it turned out where it was like, man, William, he's with College Golf Fellowship. So he's teaching the Bible every week in various contexts. So he does all the prep. Ben and I literally get the notes the night before or morning of, and William puts in red letters every time he wants Ben and I to chime in. And so it is authentic in terms of like Ben and I are sharing our thoughts in the moment, but William's so organized that it makes it real easy for Ben and I in the midst of golf season to jump in every week. And so we really had a desire, Smylie, to show the golf world or whoever wanted to listen that the Bible is not some like old religious book for Sundays only. It's actually something that's changed my life and Ben's life and William's life. And we just want to make it easily accessible for whoever wanted it. And so I think the fun surprise has been, there's been our audience is a lot of younger golfers or golf fans in general, but really this kind of country club golfer. And he might have a desire to lead a Bible study at his home club, but he doesn't really have the materials, doesn't feel equipped. Well, now William has study questions and notes after every episode, and he's giving it away for free. And we've had great feedback from guys who are just eating it up. And we had a very small following, still very small compared to most podcasts, but the fact that Scotty Scheffler won the Masters and we had scheduled him the Monday after, and he still did it. He still came on. And so that boosted our listeners big time. So still a huge thanks to him.
Well, I've listened to it. It's been a lot of fun, especially for someone like me who's on the road all the time and be able to digest something like that. It's thank you for guys for doing it. And I think about guys like Stephen Bunn, who've been on the road for us for years, who are our Tuesday night Bible studies, and how much work he puts into it. So that's what I wanted to know is Webb putting that same amount of like prep into like what Stephen Bunn does before one of our Bible studies on Tuesday night. So that's great, man. I'm super happy for and continued success in that.
Thank you.
And Webb, you got a big family, and I think like this is for me the thing to digest with playing on the PGA Tour and having a big family and traveling full time for 20 plus weeks a year. When did you make the decision for yourself to say, you know what, I can't play 20 plus weeks a year anymore? Something around that 15 number is probably the sweet spot for you, just to be able what you're able to handle as a player at this age, and then also as a father with plenty of kids. Yeah.
Well, I look back, it was actually the Cognizant last year where I officially made a decision. I'm not going to play a full schedule. And, Paul Tesori and I, we talked about me cutting back for a couple of years, and I'd gotten it down to 21 or 2, but it still felt like a lot considering my kids were starting to do sports and activities and this and that. And so Paulie knew it was kind of heavy on my heart and mind. And we had so many great talks. I think that's what made our relationship special, is the fact that we were great friends outside of player caddy relationship. And so I felt like I could be honest. He could be honest. And he wasn't afraid to tell me things and I wasn't afraid to tell him things. And I just said, look, one of my fears is if I play 12 to 14 events a year, you want to caddy full time till Isaiah's 18. Like he had told me that. And I'm not giving you a full schedule. It's kind of hard to bag share nowadays. And so I said, would you ever consider like caddying for someone else? And at the time, Smylie, he's like, I would do it, but I would want it to be a very specific type of player. He wanted a young guy because he gets so much joy out of seeing a young guy develop and get better and have this drive. And so, I mean, Cameron Young was on his short list and the opportunity came to caddy for Cameron, and that didn't work out great, but it led him to Tom Kim. And I think that's been a fantastic team already. They hadn't played as well as they wanted, but I think great things are coming from Tom Kim. I think the whole golf world can see his potential. And so, yeah, back to me cutting back. It's been a little over a year now, and it's harder. It's been harder than I thought to get used to because you and I, we play 3 weeks, we have a week off, and we go do it again. And so there's this rhythm you get in, whereas I'm 3 weeks at home, play, 3 weeks at home, play. And it's a lot harder to get, sharp, tournament sharp here at Quail Hollow playing with my buddies. And so I'm still working on it, still trying to figure it out, but it's definitely felt like the right thing to do considering, I mean, if I showed you my Google calendar right now of our shared schedule with me and my wife, it's pretty wild.
How would you describe your game at this stage of your career, Webb? As far as just where you see yourself over the next 5 years, do you feel like you still have really good golf in front of you?
I do. I really do. I mean, guys like Keegan Bradley, Chris Kirk, even Ricky Fowler. I mean, you're a good buddy. Ricky's younger than me, but they kind of inspired me because they kind of hit couple of lulls in their career and, won again. And they, made team events. And so I definitely believe that I can do that again. It's a lot harder, I think, playing so few events. But like right now, my game is, if I play 72 holes, 60 of the holes are just like they used to be. And I'm thinking, well, I'm hitting shots, I'm making putts. It's the 12 holes that are, they're bogeys instead of pars like they used to be, or a couple of doubles when it used to be bogeys. And so I'm really trying to clean that up. Joe Mayo has helped a ton. Paulie is still helping me a ton. And so I fully plan on playing good golf again and hitting a good stretch. But I've been waiting for that to come for quite a while. So it's easy to get frustrated.
So would Paulie and Joe, would they be helping you mainly with golf swing, or is it short game? What exactly are those two guys as far as the impact they're putting on your golf game right now?
Yeah, I hired Joe Mayo 2 years ago, right after Hilton Head. I missed the cut by one. And that was kind of my game for the last 2 years. Like I'm always right around the cut. Like I'm not, playing these terrible rounds, but I'm also not shooting 65 like I used to. And so I said, Joe, I need some help. I feel like I'm not far off, but I don't really know where to go. And so he shows up at Quail Hollow. I showed him a swing from 2013 at the Century. And I said, can you get me to swing like this again? And he loved the golf swing, which I was thankful for, from 2013. And we slowly started working on it. And I feel like I got better really fast, but then I slowed down a little bit. And so Paulie's always been a part, even when he started working with Cam. I'd ask Cam, hey man, can I borrow Paulie for a couple swings? So he's kind of the consultant. He knows my history. He knows my tendencies. But Joe has a wealth of knowledge, especially with short game. So I just love bouncing things off of Joe. He's quick to give me an answer, yes or no. And so those two guys in my corner is pretty special. And they really like each other. They work well together. And it's been a fun couple of years.
Well, I talked to Paul Tesori yesterday in the sixth fairway with Tom Kim. They hit about 6 shots into the sixth green, trying to tweak a little hybrid. Finicky Paul is when it comes to making sure, hey, let's get this thing exactly right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was happening yesterday at 6 at Bay Hill. And as you guys are listening to this, it's going to be Players Week, and we'll definitely get into the Players Championship. But with Paul Tesori, I asked him a couple of different things. Like, hey, I was like, Paulie, what should I ask Webb? He's like, you know what? You need to ask him about how important it is for him when he was a part of any international team.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's just, you get him talking about that, and he just has so much pride in the time he spent on those teams. And we see the USA hat that you're wearing today. Can you just talk a bit about your experiences, man, being on teams and what it's been like for you in those team rooms?
For sure. I mean, my first team was 2011 Presidents Cup in Melbourne, Australia, and Jim Furyk really set the tone for me for team week. So we're in the last practice round, we're finishing up. And he's like, hey, listen, this is your first week as a team event. He goes, remember this, that at the end of your career, the two things you'll remember most are your wins and your team event experiences. And I really took it to heart and realized that, like, to play on a team with guys that you want to beat every week, but yet that one week you feel like a unit, your wives are a part of everything. You go to the course as a team, you come home as a team, you know, there's laughter, there's tears, there's all the emotion you feel. He was so right. I mean, I think looking back in my career, to be able to say I played for Tiger Woods in 2019 in Australia is something I'll never forget, especially him going 3-0 as a playing captain. But I've had great partners along the way too. It's kind of how Bubba Watson and I's friendship forged. So 2011 Presidents Cup, Smylie, I'm supposed to go odds. You know, we played our practice rounds, played 3 of them. I'm odds. I feel good on odds. Man, I'm walking to the first tee. I hear the crowds, and I pull Bubba aside. I'm like, hey, man, I can't do it. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I can't hit this first tee shot. I said, please go odds. He laughed. He's like, I'll go odds. I don't care. So he and I went 3-1 that week. And, you know, we just had a blast together. Ted Scott became a good friend because of it. And then the Ryder Cup, it's a whole nother animal. I'm repping the Presidents Cup right here, but I get to support my guy Keegan Bradley this year in New York. The Ryder Cup, I think, it's different in the sense that there's such history in the rivalry. And everyone knows there's certain matchups that are more intense than others. You know, you've had the characters over the years in Sergio, Seve, Ian Poulter. And then obviously so many great stories from our side, the comeback in 99, you know, Paul Azinger doing what he did, at Valhalla. And, you know, we have a challenge ahead of us. You know, they're hungry. As Rory said last year in an interview at the Ryder Cup, he said one of the greatest accomplishments in the game is to win an away Ryder Cup. So no doubt they're coming for one purpose, to beat us. And so, I love the challenge. And Smylie, I mean, I didn't have any experience going into Quail Hollow for the Presidents Cup as a captain, so I didn't really know what to expect. And I told Kevin Kistner this the other day. I said, Kevin, I knew I would care about it, but I didn't think I'd be nervous. I'm not hitting any shots. And I'm like, I was so nervous. Like, it was like my son's out there. You know, I want them to win so bad. And I'm watching Scotty and Sam Burns play all week. And I'm like, man, these guys, how can I ever beat these guys? They're unbelievable. So, well, I love the experience.
Did you ever play from? I know they reworked the holes for the Presidents Cup that week. Yeah. But the normal 11th hole at Quail Hollow, right? Is that well, maybe not. I get confused with the rerouting. The par 3, is that 13?
Yeah, it's 13.
It's a normal 13. Yep. Did you ever play a shot from the shank of Scotty Scheffler? Have you ever been over there in the woods where Sam Burns played from?
But I was right there on the tee, and it's like when I hear the sound, it's like a trigger sound for me, right? Like I hear it, and I'm like, oh gosh. But it was cool because Kevin Kistner played a vital role that week on the team, and he pulled me aside that afternoon after, you know, those matches. And he's like, hey, you know, can everyone get together tonight? And I'm like, I'll say something to Davis. He just wanted to get everybody together to laugh. You know, we're going into the Sunday singles. And I think he is a veteran, been around these teams and around the game long enough. These young guys, they're so focused, as you know. They're in the ice bath. They're getting therapy. There's not a lot of time to laugh and let off some steam. So we got everybody together, and it was Scotty's shank. Somebody said something, probably Kevin, that got everybody laughing. And then Kevin wanted me to tell all my stories of shanking it at the Masters, the Ryder Cup. And he still to this day says the worst or greatest shank he's ever seen was mine at Kahala on the 11th
hole at Sony.
Yeah. and it almost went out of bounds. Almost went in somebody's coffee on their back porch. So,
well, Paulie told me that on that shot, he said that you hit it, and then you were trying to figure out, hey, Paulie, is that inbounds or out of bounds? Like, buddy, I don't know.
That was my biggest concern. And I just birdied 10, good start, and then it is in bounds. Paulie somehow gets me a number, hit it to 12 feet and lip out, and could have been the greatest par ever.
Well, Kiz said he would have gone in, and Paulie said that the rest of the day you shot 63, and Paulie still basically had said that no other person can go hit a shot like that and go out and still shoot a 63.
I think I was just so used to, shanking it and moving on.
Yeah.
One time I shanked it at Cog Hill in the playoffs with Dustin Johnson, and it went in the grandstands, took forever to get relief, wedged it to like 8 feet, made par. And
you were leading,
laughing.
Right? You were leading, correct?
I shot 65 that day, and he's just laughing. He didn't really know what to say. And I'm just like, welcome to my world. It happens.
And then Greensboro, you had a shank on the first hole. Is that right? And then you still won the golf tournament? Was it the first hole or no?
Third hole, par 3. Almost went out of bounds, but hit a tree. Still made double. Paulie and I 3-putted. End up winning. So I shanked it out, almost out of bounds, made double, and then same club on 5 made eagle. But I don't know if Kevin's told you this. So some with the 11th hole. The 11th hole at Greensboro a couple years ago, second hole of the golf tournament, I shanked it again. And Kevin says that impact, I yelled at him saying something with you, Kevin. I always shank it on the 11th hole. So,
I mean,
it's in there.
Hey, what's the deal there? You just kind of comes out randomly. You just never really know. Feels good until you hit it, type of thing. Or?
Yeah, like I've always played with a lot of face rotation. So if I'm not timing it well, that face comes through impact open. That heel's pretty exposed. But it's funny because like 2012 when I won the U.S. Open, I had more shanks that year than any year. So it's always been kind of a comfort knowing like, hey, if they start coming again, it was a great year in 2012. I played the Ryder Cup. So,
hey, there's a lot of people listening right now just thinking, nodding their head. It's you know what? If Webb can do it, so can I. So
that's right.
I love to hear it. Hey, and quick question back on the Ryder Cup and Presidents Cup. Well, mainly just Ryder Cup. I saw the one year you were paired up against Ian Poulter. You're talking about these stalwarts of these European teams. And I was always wondering how you treat someone like Ian on the day in which you play him. Because you know what type of energy he's going to bring. Are you someone that would kill Ian Poulter with kindness the whole day and just like talk his ear off to try to get him out of his zone? What was the strategy behind someone like that who is a big time problem in a Ryder Cup?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my personality to like play games or to talk junk. Like I've just never done it. I don't think I'd be good at it. But I also knew that he's not used to people, especially in a Ryder Cup, telling him, good shot, nice putt, good swing, whatever. So that was my way of trying to get in his head or at least calm him down a little. I wanted to give him no ammo against me. I lost to him at the Ryder Cup in singles at Medina. We tied at the Ryder Cup at Glen Eagles in 2014. But then he and Rory paired up against Bubba and I in France, and they beat us. And so my record's not great against him, but he's one of those rare figures where throughout. I mean, he's been a great player a long time. Don't get me wrong, but he just seemed to elevate his game way more in the Ryder Cup than any other tournament. And there's always some characters like that, and it was fun to see. He was really good for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah. Well, what were some of your favorite memories? You said something along the lines of what you will remember are those Ryder Cups and Presidents Cups and your wins. What memory what sticks out the most to you from those teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite memories where I think I realized how special the Ryder Cup really is. And you hear stories and presidents come to Presidents Cups and celebrities come to Ryder Cups, whatever it might be. But I get to I believe it's the 13th hole at Medina, downhill, beautiful par 3 over the water. And there's so many people. And I walk back to the tee box, and sitting down a foot from the tee box where we're putting our bags is Michael Phelps. And he had just done his whole thing in, I think, 2008 and 12, and Michael Jordan. And I'm like, it kind of humbled me in a sense of like, wow, like this is really special. Like it means a lot to a lot of people from different walks of life. And it kind of fired me up. And Bubba and I had a great time there. We won a couple of points as a team. And honestly, Smylie, that was a huge loss. We were up 10-6 going to Sunday, and Europe came back and won. But like Davis Love is one of those guys, one of those captains where like he was unbelievable. Like I've talked to him many times about that Sunday singles, and he regrets, the lineup, but he learned from it. And I think it ultimately helped him win in 16. But he was such a amazing captain to play for. And then just getting to know some of these older guys that I didn't really spend a ton of time with, like Freddie Couples. I played a bunch with Steve Stricker early in my career, but being around him, him and Nikki. So I think just the time to get with these people at the golf course, during the practice rounds, and at night. Guys, these tough guys, as you know them as well as I do, they have big egos, and which is great. It's what makes them great players. But to hear them give pep talks, and I'll never forget, last thing I'll say, 2019 in France, we're down going into Sunday, and Jim Furyk just opened up the floor in our team room at the hotel for anyone who wanted to speak. And we got Phil Mickelson sharing some unbelievable stuff. We got Tiger Woods who stood up, and he shared some things that, he spoke to Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler, these guys who have come alongside him and helped him fall in love with the game again. And real stuff that you'll never hear outside of that team event that made it special, and you felt like you were really a part of something.
So when you're a player, you don't really hear about probably as much with the pairings. You kind of hear a little bit of, I know the pod system has been kind of created, so you have a general idea who you want to play with. And I know there's probably feedback that captains are taking from players as far as like who they would like to play with or who they would want to pair up with. But now being on both sides of it and seeing kind of what it's like from the captain room as far as just the analytics and the stats that go into pairing guys up, how much of that have you seen captains use over the years as far as just using just raw data to pair up guys versus just an overall feel of, oh, you know what, those two guys would probably pair together? Or do these guys kind of mix and match using feel and data?
Yeah, that was actually something that I was surprised about in 22 as a captain, was how much they relied on the analytics team. And the analytics guys are awesome, and their stuff is, I didn't know they had as much information as they do. And my last event was 2019 before being at the Presidents Cup here in 22. So I missed a couple of years, and I think the use of analytics increased a lot in those 2 years. But it was great for me to see, I think, in 22 going into the Ryder Cup this year, because on one hand, the stats don't lie. Some of it is a projection, right? Like we're measuring Scotty Scheffler's, stats on Bethpage against certain players in these conditions. So a little bit of it is more nuanced. But I think what Kevin had told me he learned in Canada was like stats can say one thing, but if the captains feel they have a gut on something, they'll go with it. And I think at the end of the day, we're all golfers. We play by feel a lot of the times. And sometimes you have to go away from the data in order to make in the moment decision. And so I'm thankful that I'm walking into an environment that Keegan's very familiar with. And Brant was a part of it as well. Jim, obviously. And so I think the rule of thumb is we're going to use it. We're going to know it. We're going to have it to help us, but we're not going to let it do the pairings for us. Like we still have to make a decision. Guys' energy, how do they feel? Are they confident? Or are they not? Guys could come in, their stats are unbelievable, but they're not that confident from the last couple of weeks of golf, or vice versa. Some guy might have had poor ball striking stats for his caliber of player, but for the last 3 weeks, he's hitting it down the middle and feels great.
Yeah.
You got to kind of look into that as well.
So Keegan Bradley 2 years ago obviously gets the call that he wasn't going to be on that Ryder Cup team. Last year makes the team. Webb, I know you've gotten that call before where you don't make the team, you feel like you should have, but now being on this side from a captain standpoint, you don't have to make the call, but what have you seen and learned from captains as far as managing relationships with players, knowing that, hey, like we'd love to have you on the team, but it just hasn't worked out this year. Is that something that weighs heavy on you, although you don't have to make the call?
It does. I mean, I still remember where I was in my car, exactly the parking spot, probably where Stricker called me and said, because if the Ryder Cup happened in 20, I think I would have qualified, but because it went to 21, I didn't play as well in 21, and I was kind of one of those bubble guys. And Stricker and I were close. Like, he cut back his tournament schedule, so I've leaned a lot on him on how to do it. We played some team events together, but he called me, and he was just dead honest with me. Didn't, put any fluff in, didn't sugarcoat anything. And I really appreciated that. And it was honestly a lot easier to handle and to take, knowing he was being as honest as he could. And so I think for Keegan, he'll do that. He had his experience where he thought he was going to make that team last year and didn't. So I think he knows how it feels, which will help him make some of these calls, because every team, you're going to have to make 3 to 5 calls that are brutally hard. And so a lot of times guys don't understand. They disagree. With the golf media now, like it's fun to follow, but there's a lot of opinions on who should make it, who shouldn't have. And so I think the captain's got to be real careful on getting there first, letting the player know how much they were wanted, but it just didn't work out. So it's going to be tough, but Keegan's going to bear the weight of that more than me.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to being there with NBC and covering it, so I'm sure I'll be seeing you a lot that week. It's going to be an incredible Ryder Cup up at Bethpage. But the next topic I want to get into, Webb, is something that I imagine was difficult for you for many years, which when they banned the belly putter, like you were just an incredible putter with that thing, just sticking right there in the belly button. I was watching old videos last night, and it's funny how long ago it seems seeing a belly putter used by a player. But how difficult was that process for you, man, going from something that was so trained, right? It's a trained skill, to finding like, what's the solution? I know there's other players like Keegan Bradley that had to go through similar deals, but it seems like y'all both were able to come up on the other side of finding a process that worked for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was at the Ryder Cup in 2014 when Paulie said, hey, we hadn't putted great this year. Like, we have another year, we could use this thing, but what if we go ahead and switch, this fall, this off season, to a short putter? So we did, and my first tournament was the Dunlop Phoenix. First time using a short putter.
I played there.
11 years. Yeah. So I figured, less pressure in Japan than in the United States. So it'll be a good first start. And I had some, good putting weeks early on the PGA Tour. I remember I putted great at Doral, finished 7th that week. So I was feeling confident. Finished 2nd here at Wells Fargo. But then in the summer, that first year, I started putting really bad. And I went from being an above average putter to 2 years in a row with the short putter. I'm one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour, like 175 to 200 type numbers.
Was that all inside of 10 feet? Was it mainly just holding the putts that you should hole?
Yeah, I was nervous, anxious over the putter, no confidence. And then I missed a cut here at Wells Fargo. This would have been, I guess, 2016 May. And Bones, I was playing with Phil. Bones talked to Paulie about, hey, when Phil went to the claw, like, he got way better inside, 10 feet. Webb should try it. So I went out to Charlotte Country Club, grabbed an arm lock putter, and tried the claw. And I'm like, okay, this feels a little awkward, but it feels like doable. And Paulie watched my stroke the next week. He said stroke's really good. And that was, I think, Colonial. And I finished 3rd or 4th that week, the year Spieth made everything from everywhere. But I'm like, all of a sudden I feel like a new player. And Smylie, those days were dark. I mean, I got to a point where I thought I could keep a career on tour, but I believed I could never win again unless I figured something out with the putter. I mean, I'd go out and hit 16 greens, and, shoot one under par. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this.
That's just not you either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I was used to making a couple of 10 to 20 footers around. That had stopped. And I was starting to miss a couple of 3 to 4 footers around. And it was just killing me. It was killing my confidence, momentum, everything. But when this arm lock came and the claw happened, it changed everything. I went from like like I said, 190, let's say, on strokes gained putting to fifth all of a sudden. And Hortsy came up to me and he goes, explain something to me. How does somebody go from 190 to fifth in a year? I said, it's Horsey. I just changed my putter, changed my grip. But it's been a roller coaster for me. Now I'm in I use the broomstick and I do love it. I would say I'm not I don't get as hot on my hot days, but my bad days are like -1 strokes gained versus what I was doing, -3. So it's something I'm working really hard on. Like I feel great over the putter now. But as you know, the difference in finishing fifth and 25th is a few putts a week. That's it. And so if I can get back to kind of holding some 10 to 20 footers like I used to, I think those are the weeks that are going to make me feel more confident.
When I was on the PGA Tour, Webb, I typically would go to older guys for advice. Did a player like Scotty Scheffler that was going through the slump that he went through with the putter reach out to you about anything that you maybe have learned with the putter as far as just dealing with that overall angst when you're standing over it and you just know you don't have the confidence, but you know you got to try to stroke everything that you feel like you're going to make it? Did any player like Scotty or like that come up to you and just ask for advice of how you got through it?
So Scotty didn't. And I think, what makes last year for him so remarkable, like on top of everything he accomplished, was the fact that he started out the year on the West Coast Swing putting so poorly. And then he wins 7 times. Like, I don't think people realize, like, confidence wise, he was kind of in the dumps with his putter. He ended up, making tons of putts. But a few people have reached out to me in terms, not always about putting, but just getting over like what seemed like a slump or a challenge in their game. And it's fun to help guys because I had Bernhard Langer. I reached out to him. He helped me so much. I mean, he got over the yips once or twice with his putting, and his career is, one of one. And he just gave me some basic stuff that helped him. And that was really the turning point. I mean, I was pretty closed-minded when it came to trying other stuff. I had 9 3-putts in 2 days at Bethpage Black for the first playoff
kidding
event.
Me? Oh.
And I made the cut, which is crazy.
You beat me then. Shoot.
But, I mean, Paulie had a heart-to-heart with me after that second round. He's like, you're closed-minded. You got to try stuff. You got to be more open. So he gave me the advice to call Bernhard and just player to player, what helped you, Bernhard, get over some of this stuff? And man, he really helped. And that's when I started, really being open to, I'll try this. I mean, I'll putt with a shovel if the ball's going in the hole. I don't care.
Remind me, Webb, was the Players Championship that you won, was that one of the best putting weeks you've had in your career? Because I just have this memory of you starting, I feel like the tournament on the backside, and then that Friday you were on the front, and you were just moving, man. Like just that. I think it was that Friday round. I haven't gone back and looked at the scores, but I just remember it was just everything looked like it was so easy for you that week.
Yeah, that was the best putting week I've ever had for sure. That was when the green books were legal. And so what Paulie and a few caddies would do, remember, they go to Kinko's and they'd blow them up. So it was like it was like this. Every hole was like this. So Paulie sitting there reading a book. So I think it was a great combination of Paulie was unbelievable at reading these green books. Like that was still a skill. I didn't know how to read them. Paulie did. And, that was the last year of the players being in May. So Bermuda greens, I love Bermuda.
Mm-hmm. And he played faster, right? So like you're getting fast. When you're driving it good, that ball's rolling out for you.
Ball's running. Exactly. And so the hole just got bigger and bigger. And Friday was probably my greatest round I've ever had, as a pro. It was just, everything was going well. I eagled 2 to start it out, just making everything. And, I think I shot 63 with a double on 17. And so that was really fun. I had a 5-shot lead after 2 days, and then I had a 7-shot lead going into Sunday, and it was the hardest round of golf I've ever had.
Really?
I mean, it's funny because when Tiger won the Masters in 97, I remember I watched that film so many times. His dad told him Sunday morning, it'll be the longest, hardest round you've ever played. And he had a huge lead. And I'm like, I don't get that. But then I understood it after the Players, because it's 7-shot lead. All you can do is lose it, right? Like, you're expected to win. And guys were making a run early on. Like, Tiger was, I think, 6 under early. I started out par. Danny Lee I'm playing with, birdies 2 and 3. So a lot was going on, but I kind of weathered the storm there in the middle part of the round and got it done.
How would you compare your 2 big wins with the Players Championship and the U.S. Open Championship? Would you say you played better one week or the other?
Yeah, I definitely played better at the Players. Like, the U.S. Open was very average through 2 days. I was in like 29th place, sitting at 5 over, I think. But then I played a great round on Saturday.
Isn't that crazy? 5 over.
I know.
And you still end up winning.
I'm not even thinking about winning. But I shot 2 under Saturday and moved me all the way up to like 8th place and 4 back. And then, Sunday the round was right in the middle. I birdied 6, 7, 8, and 10, and I parred in. Like, that was it. But Smylie, I think the Players was way more special because I'd been through the putter slump for 2 years. Like I said, I doubted whether or not I could win again. Mm-hmm. It had been 4.5 years since I had won Las Vegas, the tournament you won. And then my dad passed away the previous November. So losing my dad was raw and still fresh. It's Mother's Day, so my mom's emotional without my dad. Paulie's from Ponte Vedra's from St. Augustine. So this is like his major. So all that kind of, comboed into Sunday being so special. So like, U.S. Open was such a gift. I wasn't really expecting it. I was surprised myself. I'm sure a lot of people were surprised, but the Players was more, it just meant more. And it was a tournament that I'd always loved. I never played well. Like, I loved that golf course, but I'd never put together 4 good days. And so I look back and I'm like, man, that was my favorite moment as a pro.
Did you like the Players being in May or March more?
I like it in May.
Me too.
Yeah, it looks better in March. It's beautiful. It looks perfect. It looks like Augusta, but I just feel like the golf course. I've seen the final round a bunch, but my drive on 9 on Sunday, by the way, it was 160 ball speed, which is crazy. 160, but the ball rolled 40 yards.
Yeah.
And now the ball just kind of hit some plugs. So I wish it would go back to May, but.
Well, what about the old major schedule? Do you prefer how it used to be where the PGA Championship was the last one in August, or you actually prefer maybe kind of kicking, every month there's a big event?
I like how it is now. I just wish, like you said, I wish we could get the Players back in May. I don't mind that we end in July, the Open Championship. I love that tournament, and it really puts the emphasis on the FedEx Cup. But the Players is the only one where, it's kind of cool to me that the Masters kicked off everything.
Yeah.
But I get why the PGA Tour did it. It makes sense on a calendar and all that.
And you get some windy days too in
cold.
March. You can get anything. You really don't know. But how many Masters did you play, Webb?
I played 10. My first one was 2012, and to this day, it's my favorite tournament. I love it. I love the tradition. What year was it that you were in the final group there?
16. So
I did your first one?
First and only, man. I had every experience. I played with Zach Johnson in the par 3 contest. Him and I both made a hole in one. I made it on 8. He made it on 7. Way. And then I believe it was Gary Player made a hole in one in the group in front of us. He was playing with Jack Nicklaus. It was just like the perfect day.
God.
And then then I'd end up in the final. I mean, I checked off every single box that you could possibly have for a Masters. So
I tell people that Wednesday at Augusta is my favorite golf day of the year, not a close second.
Yeah, because I mean, you got all your kids running out, man. It had to be pretty cool having all five of them out there running around.
It's so cool. And my only real special par 3 story, my old swing coach, the head pro at my home course in Raleigh, used to work at Augusta. So he caddied for me one year at the par 3. And Smylie, I'm like 3 over through 8 holes. I'm like, this is so bad. Like, no momentum. He's probably like, why did I come here? And I get to 9 and pull it. Not even a great shot, but it spins back down and then it goes in. So that's the only hole in one with him. And so it was such a good memory.
I love it. Did you ever have a Masters where you feel like you had a shot on the back 9?
Yeah. So I had one chance to win. It was the year Tiger won in 19. I lost by 2. And I was never really like 2 was as close as I got. I just didn't have a great start. I think I was 1 over through 7 holes. Mm-hmm. And, had I been 1 under through 7, it would have been a lot more exciting. But I was in the second to last group with Brooks and Ian Poulter. So
you saw some things.
I saw some things. I mean, the 12th hole, I'm hitting 3rd. Poulter hits in the water. Brooks hits in the water. And somehow I managed to get it on the green or the fringe, and then the group behind me. You remember?
Was the wind doing something funky? Could you not feel it, or were guys just mishitting shots?
No, we couldn't feel it because Brooks hit first, and he hit 9-iron, and Brooks, he's going right at it, but he flushed it, and I'm like, this is one of the greatest shots I've ever seen. It's going to go to a foot, lands on the bank, spins back. Poulter hits 8. It's a great shot. You can tell he loves it. He's in the water, and I'm already holding 8-iron, thinking I got to chip it. And I look at Paulie like, bud, what are we going to do? Poulter just hit 8. We're about the same with our irons. Paulie goes through the numbers again. He's like, buddy, I don't know what to tell you. This is the club. He's like, the only thing I'll say is just hit it a little lower than you were planning on. That way we can kind of cheat the wind. And I did. I chipped it, took some spin off, went to the back fringe. And then the group behind us, Tony Finau and Molinari both hit in the water.
Are you just thinking, what are you thinking right now? Are you, it's because you don't really know where the board stands when you get to 13T. Because now I assume you 2-putt for par. You see Tiger hit it on the green, but you just saw a lot of your competition just hit it in the penalty area. Do you have a little pep in your step walking to the fairway on 13?
Sure. Yeah, because I got 13 and 15. I'm like, I've seen guys do it. I've seen guys finish 5 or 6 under on these last bunch of holes. Like, there's still a chance. But I think I birdied 13 and 15, and that was it, or 13 and 16. But I remember this was fun. I teed off 13. I hear all this going on. And normally Augusta crowds are so controlled. Yeah. But when Molinari and Finau hit in the water, there was some cheering going on for Tiger. They cheered that these balls were in the water. So I turned around to kind of take in the moment because I'm like, man, I don't know how many more of these I get to play. And it was a cool picture. It's Tiger on the left side of the green on 12, kind of hands folded in the black and red. And you see these 2 other guys taking a drop in the drop zone. And I'm like, man, this is exactly how Tiger would have drawn it up. So it was cool to see it.
Man, I bet it feels like it was yesterday, just picturing moments like that, and you'll be able to tell these stories for years and years about watching Tiger come back and win a Masters, and you being right there having a chance. I bet that'll be fun to tell your grandkids one day.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more question for you. So you turned pro in 2008.
Yep.
Is that about right? What would you tell yourself or your 23-year-old self now, knowing what you've experienced over the last 20 years of being a professional, or 17? That's LSU math right there. Sorry about that. what advice would you give 23-year-old Webb Simpson?
I think I look at the best players in the world, and you've seen them every week. Like, they have an incredible team around them. My first couple of years were okay at best, but then I started getting people in my corner who are experts, whether it's a trainer, a caddy, swing instructor, and I really established my team. And so if I could do it over again, I mean, it took me a couple of years. I would have just started day one, treated myself like CEO of my company, and invest. I'm going to invest in my company. I know it's a lot of money, but I tell these young guys, some guys don't have a choice. Like, they don't have the money to be able to do that yet. But the guys who get on tour, I just try to tell them, look, you want to be a top 20 player in the world. It's going to cost you money, time, resources to get there, but do it. Like, there's nobody in the top 10 in the world that hasn't invested tons and tons of money into their craft and their company. And so, yeah, once I did that, i.e. Paul Tesori, 2011, I had my best year ever by far on the PGA Tour up until that point. And so you just can't be a top player in this game without having a great team around you. And, you see it in every player that's a top player. And so that's what I would probably do different.
Well, that's great advice, and look forward to watching you captain this year at Bethpage, Webb, and I hope to see you in the winner circle too, because it would be a lot of fun to see you lift up some crystal again, buddy. It's
awesome.
It's been fun to play with you over the years. You've been a great mentor to me, and I always appreciate our friendship. And Webber, hope to see you soon, man.
Thank you, Smylie. I'm a huge fan of everything you're doing, so we'll see you soon, buddy.
Thank you,
Thanks
Webb.
so much.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our
First
level
time.
fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the